Well, Charlene was already stacking up the tins when I got into work this morning. I was in the door not, 10 minutes, and she's calling on over. She's like, "Hey Julie, come here a minute, will you?" Anyway, she starts telling me about her Sean, because he'd taken his girlfriend away for the weekend just gone, because it was her birthday, Oh, bless him. It was a really posh hotel, nice meal, a swanky restaurant. I mean, it is a lot of money for him, I think, because, he's only just turned 21. Oh, anyway, so they go back to the hotel, him and Vicky, try and get off to bed, but she can't get to sleep. So she thinks she's got food poisoning. She's got these terrible, like stomach cramps. Well, 2 a.m. come. She's only on the bathroom floor with the baby's head hanging out, of her lady parts. Yeah, I know. She didn't even know she was pregnant. Which is funny, considering at Charlene's 50th, that, Vicky's on the dance floor. Charlene turns to me and she says, "Do you reckon Vicky's put some weight on?" And I said to her, "No, that frock just does nothing for her." Well, anyway, so Sean's come in, found her on the bathroom floor. He's got the ambulance on the blower. And you know what? They tell him to tie off the umbilical cord with a shoelace. Yeah. Oh, and never mind the labour. She insists on him using one of his, because she don't want to dirty the new ones off her new trainers. Right in the middle of labour, but at least she's got her priorities straight. Go, honest to God. Well, it is a lovely baby though. What have they got? A little girl, Olivia Jane they've called her. Charlene got all the pictures up for me on her phone. Well, started my day on a high after that. Oh, and it meant I had a really nice story to tell Elsie after I came in from work. Oh, Elsie, yeah, she's at number 10. No, she's 85 and she's just been widowed. Since her Jim's passed, I've been wanting to do her some odd jobs and such, but she's usually quite an house-proud woman, is Elsie, but the dishes were stacked up a bit and I thought she could do with a good hoovering. Well, it's like she's just stopped, Like she don't know how to carry on functioning. I suppose that's grief for you. But, anyway, I took the U-bank round, gave it a good pushing round. Took some dirty washing of hers. Anybody would do the same. Anyway, I wanted to try and perk her up a bit. So I told her about Charlene. I said, "Hey Elsie, you'll never guess. My mate Charlene from work. She's only become a nana. I didn't even know she was pregnant. And they had to tie off the umbilical cord with a shoelace. And she wouldn't let him use one of hers because it'd dirty her new shoes. Can you believe that?" Anyway, she goes quiet for a minute, and I'm wondering what she's thinking. I could see the cogs going round, and then finally she speaks. She turns to me and she says, "What if he'd been wearing a slip-on shoe?" Well, after that broke the ice a bit, she starts telling me about her mate Joan, who popped round earlier. Oh, you'd love Joan, because she's just like Elsie, just less arthritic, and not been widowed recently, of course. Mind you, she's always been a bit of a spinster, so that's probably helped her chances in that case. But she always looks immaculate, mind. Nice shoes, a woolen coat, brooch, anorak on the off chance of a downpour. She's a proud woman by all accounts. Mind you, the trouble is, she is getting on a bit, and as such, she's getting a bit thin on the top. Well, Elsie tells me she's got this wig, to try and help her compensate. Well, woman's only been in the door for 30 seconds, and Elsie goes to her. Oh my God, she goes to her. "Your wig looks nice, Joan." I said, "You never." She said, "I did. What's wrong with that?" God. Anyway, we finally got to the elephant in the room. Jim. Oh, bless her. She kept saying what a wonderful man he was. Well, everyone knew that, I told her. 86, and he still did all his own pots round the back garden. Isn't that marvellous? She told me they were engaged about 6 years before they were wed, saving for the big day. Don't think that would happen now. Oh, and to go around the house, there are pictures of them everywhere. Coming out the church in the finery, pictures of them in their first car and such like. They're just, their marriage, they just seemed so close. And, you know, talking about him, she just seemed to lighten up a bit, you know. I was thinking, when I first found out that Jim had passed, the first thing that I thought of was, I saw them dancing once at this do somewhere, and you know, Elsie clearly had, you know, one glass too many. She was halfway to falling, but, you know, Jim, he seemed to know whatever move she'd make before she made it, you know. And she was just there smiling away, Jim carrying her through all of this waltz. And, well, I mean, I've never. Just imagine being that loved. Sorry. I thought the day weren't going to go that well from the off, if I'm honest with you. I woke up at 3 a.m. on the settee. I must have nodded up, watching something on the telly, but anyway, I stirred my stumps and I felt something, you know, in my cleavage. And I looked down and it were a folded up contact lens. I mean, it was lucky I looked before I ate it. Thought it was a crumb. Couldn't get off to sleep after that. No, it were a lovely service though. For a funeral, I mean. Fitting tribute to the man. Oh, and not a sign of Frank bloody Sinatra, thank God. You know, funeral before last I went to, they played Simply the Best as the curtains shut. No, but I did think everyone spoke really well of Jim at the wake, you know. Well, I said that, but the church were half empty, you know. Weren't many people there. I sat next to Elsie. I didn't want people thinking that I was a daughter or anything. What with her and Jim not having any kids by the end. Wondered if that, you know, bothered them. So. But yeah. No, all manner of folk coming over to us at the wake. There was, over there. Jim's old mates from work. His sister, lovely woman she were. The old dear from up the chemist. Oh, there was a man in the corner just crying. He didn't come over to talk to us. Jim's sister said, apparently, once upon a time, he used to be a policeman. But, I mean, I asked Elsie about him, but she didn't give out. Oh, Elsie, yeah, she was quite quiet throughout. I wanted to make sure she was okay, so I drove her home and I made her a cup of tea and that. I asked if she was alright, and she was quiet for the longest time, but finally, she turned to me. Finally, she spoke, you know, out of the mouths of babes. She said, oh, it was that vicar that did it for me. That sermon. Oh, God is there to catch us at our most vulnerable. His loving hand will guide us. What a load of old bollocks. God's selfish. You know, don't tell me he's what to turn to when we got nothing left. You know, when we're on our own. If that were right, then where would God when my baby would? When my husband? No, I wanted God then. I prayed. And was he there? No, was he, heck? Because times like those, you got nothing. And you know, when we're at our weakest, we must all believe in the deity. Well, it does. It makes you wonder why folk bother. Oh, but to realise now, yeah, I realise. It's because they just want something for their own gain. You know, a congregation of yes men. They pander to that vicar. Aye. Just because they think he's got some kind of hotline to the big man. Oh yes, no fear, missus. Not to worry. He's polishing a cloud in heaven as we speak. Plot right next to Jesus. Only if 𝘓𝘵𝘓𝘕 hadn't nabbed it first. No, our Jim stopped going to church for a while. And he started again. Well, it's the same in those prisons, though. Isn't it? They ask them when they go into prison if they want to see a chaplain or something. You know, you've committed murder, but if you want to repent, then it's all right, is it? The chaplain come in. Oh, it's always a man, isn't it? Oh, he says, don't worry, God will forgive you. Like that Lord's Prayer, you know. Lord, forgive us our trespasses. Well, I bet he would have forgiven them kiddies that trespassed in my back garden last week. Knocked all Jim's pots over. It was something like that anyway. You know, I wonder who that policeman was.
Julie, can you stop pissing about round back? There's a bloke been waiting at till 10 minutes for you.
Oh, shit. Oh, shit. I don't know what to do. How I've got landed with this bloody affair. Oh, it's just shit. Well, I made it into work, finally. I mean, I thought before I'd just pop in on Elsie, see if she's okay, see if she wanted a chat or something, but I mean, I thought she'd be interested, right? But I've only been in the door 5 minutes before she's, you know, shuffling me out again. She had gardening gloves on and a trowel in her hand. Wow, that caught me unawares. Gardening? No, it's just 'cause she's not that mobile, you know. And it's December. I mean, she almost took a tumble the other day, just a few days after the funeral. You know, if it weren't for me, she'd have been lying there still, you know, face down on the hallway floor. Well, not surprisingly, I was a bit iffy about her, you know, getting down in the dirt in the back garden, as it were. Not a euphemism, mind you. So I did ask her, I said, Elsie, you sure you're alright to be gardening, love? Well, as it turns out, it's just something to do with Jim's pots, actually. Just something, nothing really. Anyway, bang on 9 o'clock, I've made it into work finally. I mean, I thought I wasn't going to make it, so I cut across them traffic lights, you know, at the top of the road. Oh, and for whatever reason, the silly bloke behind me only tried to do the same. He almost got his back end whacked in. Not a euphemism either, bless. Anyway, sorry. Best be off. Got to be in stock room in 10.
Oi, Julie, will you stop them fairy lights flashing? Don't want folk having fits.
Well, the auntie's just died, yeah. She had a dying vision of that Marie Curie singing to her, All I Want for Christmas. Has my car gone through?
You're right, Julie. Grab some six, please. Yeah. You should be right, yeah. Ta.
Julie!
Oh, shit. Right, it were odd. Right, there was this man upstairs, without any shopping, just waiting at the till. I mean, I couldn't see his face, but from the back I could tell he was an older man. You know, like he hunched over, he had a cardi on, white hair. But it was then that I recognised him. He was the fella from the funeral, you know, that policeman. One who was crying. Anyway, so as I come over, he clocks me, and he says he's there to see me. He asked me if I'm Elsie's daughter. And I said to him, no, I'm just a friend. Well, you know that fella at the lights this morning? That was him as well. Turns out that before the funeral, they, you know, handed Elsie's address around to people so that, you know, they could turn up at the house for the wake and follow the hearse to the crematorium and that. And so he'd found out where she'd lived. He drove up the street, parked a bit up the road, and as he's been waiting there, plucking up the courage to, you know, get out and come and knock at the door, like, he's seen me coming and going, you know, because I've been dropping off the shopping and I've been bringing her an ironing and, you know, taking the hoover around and that. So I guess today he just thought, to hell with it, you know, followed me here to work. Says he's been waiting in that car park for ages, plucking up the courage to come in. Come ask after me. Oh, his name's Edward. Eddie. He's from Manchester. He says he knew Jim years ago now, in the early 60s, I think. That must have been... Jim must have been pushing 30 then, I'd say, with Elsie. Them just getting in their stride and all, probably trying for a baby, or... Oh no. Oh, and they lost the baby. Well, anyway, he was 22 years old. He just graduated from Oxford University, and with the first class honours and all. We're only an English student, mind you, but He said he wanted to be a writer. And I mean, that was pretty impressive, I must say. He must have worked hard to get in, especially coming from up there. But then, of course, he had to go home. Well, his dad, he said, worked in the cop shop, and he said, either you can find work with me, or you won't be stopping here any longer. So he did. He joined up, completed his training on his birthday. That's how I think he crossed paths with Jim. People have been going there for years, as it happens. Look, I shouldn't be telling you this. It's really not my place to say, but I just can't get him out of my head. 22 years old. I just keep seeing him, you know, like, I feel like he was one of those 𝘐𝘵𝘬𝘠𝘕 types, you know, well handsome back in the day. Dark hair, you know, blue eyes.
So, I got sent down by the sergeant down Canal Street. Another raid on the Rembrandt Hotel. The idea was to nick the lads to go down there because, well, it's illegal. Anyway, we got there in the bar, and all the men leapt up and tried to run. They were scared to death. I couldn't arrest them, because if I had, I'd be an hypocrite. I might as well have been arrested myself. I'd never arrested anybody as it goes. But there they were, all those lads, so terrified. It's like looking in a mirror. So I just stood there, till one of them ran straight into me, and suddenly, it was like time just froze, just for a second, because he was beautiful. And then I realised that I was the police officer and he didn't know any different. He couldn't see his reflection in me. So I let him run. Of course, I had to follow him, else it would look on in front of the other coppers, so I tried to sprint after him. Too late anyway, he was fast. Well, I'd never actually been to Canal Street before that night. And I wanted to go back properly, go back as me. So I chanced it. 3 nights later, I was back at the Rembrandt. I'd got an haircut that morning to try and look a bit different, you know. And I waited up the street a bit until I saw a fair few folk coming down at once so I could try and sneak in behind them. Because I was scared shitless, thinking they'd remember me from the other night. Thinking that they wouldn't let me in because, well, I had been with the police. But I guess they didn't recognise me, because I did make it in somehow. Anyway, made it up to the bar and there he was. His Christian name was James, Jim for short. He didn't recognise me either, so I suppose either my haircut had worked wonders or he just hadn't thought twice to look at me in my uniform. Anyway, I got him a drink and we got chatting. And a drink turned into a few, and an hour into 2, and then to 3. We left at about 10:30 because he said he had to get off. But then, just as I was about to turn away and leave, he kisses me. It was that electric feeling, you know. I'd missed it. Next minute, we're down the back of the Rembrandt, down Richmond Street, in some doorway, pitch black, and he's pulling on my belt, and I'm unbuttoning my shirt, and well, you know the rest. I just thought that was that then, you know, how you do. And then you're getting dressed again after. Not quite so exciting when you're not in heat of it, and you realise you're between a couple of wet bins. But anyway, after, I turned to him and I said thanks for the night, because I had a nice time. And then I went to turn away again, and he kissed me again. But this time, it was gentle, on the cheek. That was new. And he asked if we could meet again. And he did mean it wasn't a joke. And I realised how easy it had been talking to him. And suddenly it dawned on me that I was saying, yeah, they're quite like that. So we did. We'd go walking, sometimes get dinner. We had a laugh. And after a while, I started getting hooked on being around him. Watching him brush the hair out of his eyes where it flopped over, just for it to flop right back again. Listening to him talk, watching him laugh. He had this quite high-pitched laugh, actually, yeah. not that manly. And we kept it going for a good few months. I know, it was mad. I suppose you could say we were courting. Not openly though, of course. He said it was me for the both of us, because he wasn't local and he'd just been in Manchester for work. So it had only been his second time on Canal Street when I went back that night. But we relaxed into it. And I kind of loved it. No, not kind of. But it's not right, because, well, I did. I loved him. And seeing him, well, it became that one bit of the day that I looked forward to. And then one night, he never turned up. I thought he'd stood me up. And I went back again the next week, but no sign. So I suppose I should have stopped going then, really. Would have stopped me from being such a prat out of myself. But I didn't. Because I guess I am. I am a prat. He did show his face eventually the week after to tell me that he was married. He'd got a wife. Didn't say a name. It was like he couldn't, not in front of me. But I wanted to know. I needed to, because really, without knowing it, I'd done this woman wrong. He told me eventually, Elsie. That name just made her so much more real. And he said, the other week when he'd never tipped up, it's because she was in the hospital.
That must have been when she lost the baby.
And he said, as much as he loved me, and I'd not heard him say that before, she needed him more than I did. Said he felt bad about keeping this big secret from her. Said he'd been going to church every Sunday again when he'd stopped because he knew that they wouldn't accept the likes of us. Not in there. So he said he couldn't let it carry on. And I shouted at him. It was the first real row I'd ever had. And there was this selfish part of me that wanted him to kiss me, wanted him to say sorry, wanted him to keep me like this perfect secret. But that part was quieter than the anger and the guilt. And it made me doubt whether he'd just made this stupid mistake, or whether he'd been pretending to be this lovely man all along. But either way, that didn't matter, because he'd still done this woman wrong. This woman who deserved so much more. Elsie. He broke their vows. And maybe she'd known something and she'd lost her baby. She deserved so much more respect.
He left his job after that. He couldn't stop there. Well, I mean, I say he left, he transferred to Skipton, a nice little station, you know, out of the way. So he'd never be doing raids down Canal Street again. He said he couldn't face that, not after Jim, he'd be a massive hypocrite. And I mean, besides, word had started to get round, you know, at the station. Oh, that 𝘫𝘰𝘬𝘵, have you heard about him, the one who likes to go down the canal? He said it was too much effort, you know, dealing with the looks that he got in the station. It was too much hassle for him. But besides, I mean, after Jim, I think he got over him quite quickly, really. He surprised himself even, but it was Elsie that he couldn't get over. Well, I mean, still, this all didn't explain why he was here now, you know, talking to me. I couldn't get why, because it'd been years that he was here now to say something. Well, it turns out, man, that he wants to meet her, Elsie. He said he would have done it that night when Jim left. Wanted to make amends then, but he couldn't. Said he got caught up in this idea of a poor, wronged woman. You know, this perception of her he couldn't bear to see realised. You know, he said it ended up niggling away at him for years. But then, when he saw her at the wake, there she was in front of him, and he couldn't match them up. Those two images of Elsie. You know, there in front of her, there's this woman who, you know, who might have actually survived. You know, who might just actually be okay. All right, not, what was that word he used? Irreparable. And then he thought, because if I was a daughter, then perhaps I could... Well, I don't know. I just think he didn't want to give an 85-year-old woman the shock of her life. Which is fair enough, I suppose. The only thing is now... thinks maybe I could go and, you know, soften the blow a bit. Look, I'm sure Jim did love her. You know. I mean, it always seemed like he did. And even if he didn't, he spent his life devoted to her. Well, most of it, anyway. That's got to count for something. Anyway, he left me this diary, he did. He's folded over some of the pages and he stuck this note in. Says I should read it. That'll, you know, convince me to help him, maybe. So this is, okay, this must have been just about when him and Jim broke things off. 14th of September, 1963.
I should have known better. Not got so washed up in it all. Because as much as you might feel serene in your own little bubble, the world around you stays just the same. It carries on regardless, whether you're with it or not. Damage can be done and you don't even know it. And that makes everything a bit uneasy, really. Because I now know what I want. I need to change something. Take control of the narrative, write myself something better. But you never know what will happen around you. You try to do what feels right, with all the best intentions in the world, and it still might be the wrong choice. Life doesn't wrap up like a book. Or like something down the pictures. It doesn't even drop off neatly like an episode of Coronation Street. It's long and it's unyielding and it's hard. A book ends tidily. I bloody wish life would. Or be split into chapters, tidier sections. Then we would know when something was really finished. When we're supposed to start something new. We'd have some indication of when things are about to change. Because it's this not knowing. It's that never having anywhere to look that'll tell us what we're meant to do, how we're meant to feel, where we're meant to go. That means the future can never quite hold just enough hope as you need it to. So you're left with all that fear. And it's so terrifying.
And then he stuck this note in, right? So, right, today's date. That's how I felt then. Odd, because I still feel like that now, a bit. It's years of pushing those feelings to the back of my mind, I expect, like a reflex. Time might have lessened the guilt, but it's not changed how I felt about her. I know it's selfish in a way, but somehow I know I owe it to her. Closure. For the both of us, really, so I think if I see her, then we tie up that chapter on her own terms. I'm going to have to tell her, aren't I?
So it's my turn to speak now, is it? Say my piece. Well, you've heard from every other man and his dog painting me whatever light they fancied. So it's about time I set the record straight, isn't it? It was a few nights after she'd found out that she told me. Julie. In here, actually. I had to wrangle it out of her. She'd been quiet, so I could tell there was something up. She's a nice girl, but she doesn't do quiet. Mind you, I say wrangle. I only had to ask her, is there something you want to tell me, love, and out it came. Like she regurgitated the information all at once. Projectile. Funny that, actually, because when she told me, I said, oh, I feel sick. And she said, oh, because he... And I said, no, because I've got a droopy stomach from that out-of-date 𝘕𝘓𝘓. What do you think? She shut up after that. I suppose you're expecting me to tell you how my grief-stricken heart shattered into a million pieces. Well, that would have been poetic, but it wouldn't have been true. You see, I'd sort of known that he'd been unfaithful to me. Julie just confirmed it, really. I'd had an inkling. All those times he had to go to Manchester on business. I think that's why I felt sick, because I'd always feared it. Always had that doubt and tried to convince myself otherwise. And I had nearly. Right up until that moment when it all came back. And it knocked me off kilter. I had to steady myself on the breakfast bar and knocked over one of my plants. Chipped the pot. Don't get me wrong, I was going to have it out with him after the baby was born. My Lisa. Only when the time came, well, perhaps my heart was too grief-stricken. Shattered to have that kind of confrontation. Thought by then he'd knocked it on the head anyway. How come we've both been born in the next generation? Perhaps I would have divorced him, but these were different times. Anyway, I did love him. Of course I did. And we'd taken vows. And after all that, we were both broken. I could feel him, you know, clinging on to me. We rebuilt ourselves, our lives, more the loss of the life that we might have had, that she might have had. We sort of moulded together. I learned to love him more than I ever did before. 60 year worth. Of course, I did wonder what she were like. His other woman. I used to walk around the supermarket with looking at all those leggy blondes and with their winged eyeliner and high heels and cigarettes. Well, I lolloped around with stretch marks and hemorrhoids because I still had to deliver her. Our little girl. But I haven't met him yet, Eddie. As much as I wondered what he's like, what he'd say to me. I was going to meet him, because he'd asked to meet in this cafe in Skipton. Nice little place. Only when I got outside, I couldn't go in. I stood there dithering in the doorway because, well, it had come to me that I didn't know what I'd say. I would present myself properly. And then I realised he probably had this idea of what I was going to be like already. And I felt this pressure, like, I've got to live up to it. I suppose normally I'd have managed. I'd have put on a bit of a show, really. You know. But I still weren't on top form. We're only a month or so after the funeral. Anyway, Julie were waiting for me around the back of the car park, so I came out and sent her with my apologies. She told him it was too much too soon. And then when I was feeling a bit more myself, I'd arranged to see him rather than just met the door. Well, there you go. I ought to have had the courtesy to speak to him for more than 5 minutes at least. I suppose I do feel bad about that. Although I'm not sure what good it'd do. But it did come as a shock. It did, at first. And he might have been gay, Jim. Or a what's it called? A bifocal. A bisexual, that's the one. And it upset me, really. Not because it made me doubt it all. I don't want you to think that of me, because it didn't. But it did make me wonder why he felt he couldn't tell me. I knew him best. Right down to that little mole he had. Right there on his thigh. That bit of hard skin he'd pick on his heel. But then I rationalised because I suppose I did notice sometimes that he'd squirm a bit when they started having gay characters on Coronation Street. So perhaps I did know. Deep down. A bit. And a toy boy, no less. My James, you were a dark horse. He even got to stick his 2p in before me and all. I'd have been daft to think that just because he loved me, he never would have been tempted to play away. He were still a man after all. Don't get me wrong. Wasn't right what he did. But I suppose I just don't want you to take him the wrong way. And that's why I'm here. I know I'm only explaining it for myself now. I'm the only one that can explain it for him. I'm his representative. You know, Julie said something droll the other day. She said, you know, Elsie, he did spend the rest of his life devoted to you. That's got to be worth something, hasn't it? You know, I think she thought she had been a bit of a revolutionary saying that. Like I didn't know it already. You know, I think that she thinks I'm somehow less capable because I'm old. For crying out loud. She'll be here any minute now, actually. Julie. She's still been doing that shopping for me. Keeping that one up. We've become pals. Maybe this plant, actually. The one that I knocked over when she told me. Julie. Some kind of Scorpio or something. One of Jim's favourites. Except he'd only really flowered once, first year we had it, and then he disturbed the roots, repotting it. It's never grown back quite the same the year after. Couldn't believe I'd chipped it. Anyway, I've been giving you all my attention since, haven't I, flower? Made you me own. Now look, it has. It's flowered. I suppose that's a metaphor for something. And I suppose, if I'm honest, I still just want to be held. And I still lay the table for two. Then when I come to serve it up, I remember. Wasted that much country vegetable, could have opened a soup kitchen. Anyway, don't matter when it comes down to it, does it? So long as he was happy. I hope he was. I'm sure he was. Anyway, long and short of it is, life passes, love remains.